Reverend Wendy Werner, sorry. Rabbi Adam Feldman, Imam Sultan, and CARE New Jersey Executive Director James Sawyer, and from the Attorney General's Office, we have David Leonardis. So Senator Linda Greenstein has arrived, and we would like for her to say a few words before we start the panel. Senator Greenstein, can you please come up?
Hello, didn't mean to get in the middle of this panel. It's a pretty distinguished group here, but I know it'll be very interesting. I've had a very crazy day driving for hours and hours just to get from Newark to here, but I did make it. I want to say how very sorry the entire community is. We're all celebrating, not celebrating, but meeting together because we want to say to the entire world that we're all sorry together and that this has been a horrendous experience, and every single time something like this happens, and we always pray this is the last, we all come together because we're a family here in this community. We've all gotten to know each other, we call each other brother and sister, and there's a good reason for that. We all get along really well, and when one of us is hurt, all of us are hurt. So I do want to say on behalf of the entire community just how sorry I am, and I know that all of these clergy people will express the same. And anything I can do, please let me know, as always. Thank you.
Okay, so with our interfaith members, we'd like to have a panel discussion to talk about how to directly combat and confront Islamophobia, white supremacy, and how to prevent instances like the New Zealand tragedy. I will be asking 3 questions to spark debate, but I would like it if they took it where they wanted to take it. And please be generous with the mic, but I know you guys will. Okay, so I'll start off. The continuous cycle and allowance of violence against Muslims can be attributed to the widespread narrative that Muslims are mostly perpetrators and not victims, even though this is far from the truth. How can we reclaim control of the public perception, both the subconscious and the conscious aspects of it?
Hi, I'm Dave Leonardis. I'm the outreach liaison with the Office of the Attorney General. And, you know, to answer your question, it is a complicated question, but, you know, one, we all have to stand up against hatred. I mean, not just today, not just in an event like the one that took place in New Zealand, but every day. We have to stand united. And, you know, we have to keep in mind that love can overcome hatred. Only when good people stand up and stand together. So, thank you. The only time that evil can prevail is when good people, good men and women, stand by and allow it to happen. So, no matter what you experience, each of us, if it's any kind of a minuscule act of hatred, prejudice, we need to take action. Don't put yourself in harm's way, but you need to be able to take action and report it. Report it to your local police department. Because I can tell you, in New Jersey, we take every bias incident very seriously. No matter how small it may be. It could be a religious slur painted on a house, a building. There is a special form that police officers fill out called a supplementary bias incident report. And it goes not only to that police department, not only to that prosecutor's office, it goes to the Division of Criminal Justice, Bias Crimes Unit, which is part of the Attorney General office. It goes to the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. And every day, if you think about this, every county prosecutor's office has bias crime liaisons within it. Every day, each one of those bias incident reports goes to each of the 21 county bias crime liaisons so that everybody understands what the picture looks like, bias and prejudice here in New Jersey. So it's just a responsibility that we all have. So, stand up against hatred.
I want to say, I have two parts to your answer. As the rabbi in the Jewish community of Princeton, we came here tonight to be with you in your time of loss, and it was important when you came to be with us in our time of loss. It's an honor that Imam Shabli came to be at our synagogue at different times. After the incident in Pittsburgh, many of you came to be with us. So we need to be together at times of sorrow. But I think there's something else we all should strive to do. And again, I want to use my friend Imam Shabli as an example. That there's a group that got together here and at the church and at the synagogue, and a few of us studied together. We studied our sacred text together. We looked at common themes that are true in all of our traditions, and we raised each other up through that study and through that conversation, and through a little food and drink too. But it was about being together and seeing in reality we have far more in common. And I think we need to look for more examples like that within the multi-faith world, but also those of us that are parents in this room. We need to have some challenging conversations with our children. When they see things, when they say things, we know how to respond. We shouldn't be afraid to respond and to correct any misconceptions they have.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jim Sues. I'm Executive Director of the New Jersey chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or a civil rights organization. I'd just like to point out, I'm sure all of us who watch the news remember that over the weekend, our president was asked, did he see a rising threat in white nationalism? And he said, I don't really. And I just kind of sat there and said, really? Have you seen the news from Pittsburgh? Have you seen the news from Charlottesville? Have you seen the news from Charleston? Have you seen the news from New Zealand? This is what a rising threat looks like. Okay, so the first step really is to acknowledge the situation that is happening. It's a horrible phenomenon. It's worldwide. I'd just like to say that as a Muslim of German and English extraction, I'm deeply offended by it in so many ways. But it has to be acknowledged, it has to be investigated, understood, and dealt with at a very high level. Inshallah.
Greetings and peace and blessings, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Imam Suhaib Sultan. I serve as the Muslim chaplain at Princeton University for the last 10 years. And this question is a very important question. How do we change perceptions? And I would begin by saying that every one of our faith traditions here, one of the things that we share is the power of stories. The Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, all of our scriptures tell very, very powerful stories. And it's not a coincidence, because stories change perceptions. And what I would like to say to all of my brothers and sisters who are present here today, we need to tell our story. I run a website called islamfyi.org, and there's an opportunity for people to ask questions about Islam through this website. And just yesterday, I received a vitriolic email, pretty typical, unfortunately, from someone saying, you know, on your website you talk about Islam as being this beautiful religion, but you know better, it's actually a religion of hate, so and so. And instead of quoting verses from the Quran and all of that, I shared with her the stories of these victims from New Zealand. These powerful stories of women and men who stood strong in the face of hate. And I said, tell me that these people follow a religion of hatred. No. You can see that in their final moments, they were following the religion of love, and that their stories are a powerful testament to what our faith traditions are all about. So tell your story. And the second thing that leads into that is be part of the arts community. Arts is a universal language. Whether it's through storytelling or music or calligraphy or whatever it is, art speaks to people because people recognize beauty. And that's what we need to do. We need to produce beauty in the midst of ugliness.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be on this panel or not, but I'm here now. Mandeep Singh Arora with Sikh Sabha, New Jersey, Lawrenceville. I'm a trustee there, and as well as the vice president of the clergy district. One thing from the Sikh perspective, you know, practicing Sikh men who wear turbans and long beards and wear a sword, and our sisters who wear hijab, we face the same challenges. People just assume you're foreign. People just assume that you're terrorist or right-wing. So one thing we faced as a community, because after 9/11 we had a lot of backlash. After Wisconsin there was a lot of backlash. So we decided as a community, which goes to all communities, that you have to go back into the general American public, into the fabric. Our community actually got back into the U.S. Army. We fought legally to Major Kulsi, came back in, Kamaldeep Kulsi went into the Army as a practicing Sikh. Every month from our Lawrenceville Gurdwara, our Sikh temple, the gentleman in the back here, they actually do a homeless feeding with our law enforcement and with other faith groups. I think it's very important, and we face, and I faced it when I was growing up here. My parents came from India in 1969, and my children are third-generation immigrants. We face both sides. You know, we are an immigrant family, as well as a practicing Sikh family, as well as we're quote-unquote Americans. You know, and there is a challenge that we all face. But I think many times we, as I'll say, as Muslim Americans, Sikh Americans, Jewish Americans, we have to come back into the general American fabric. And I'm not saying conform and to be, you know, what people, what's bad out there. There's a lot of good. And we can show your faith in many different ways. And one way we've done it was through homeless feedings. We even have a turban time day. We have, you know, just for, and we're not trying to preach. We don't, again, many people don't want to be preached to. They just want to learn. And I think most people are good people. So I think if you bring it in that perspective, it may bring a different attitude towards the community. And it's a big challenge because the media is not on our side. There are certain media groups which are, you know, negative towards anyone except, you know, one certain one. So,
It was a wrong question. Was given to us by Khadija because you already answered it. You were present here, then the answer of that question. Can you begin for me? Number two, I called Brother Arif Patel and I called Imam Sultan. Brother Arif Patel wants us to be elevated from tolerance to love. Yes? 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 Yes! I love New Orleans, Louisiana, because I lived there 4 years. But I love New Jersey. And the life story is A and B. Let me start with B before A. If you remember which year Governor in New Jersey office in Trenton, Jim Florio, which year Jim Florio was the governor of New Jersey, to give us as a Muslim, not Muslim, Muslim, in the main street, one corner of the building, to put Ramadan Mubarak for the whole month, before September 11, before Oklahoma City, before all this thing, which means we exist in New Jersey, I believe, as a Muslim. But part A of my story, my daughter Maryam is sitting here. When she was in the 5th grade, she asked me, Dad, she didn't say Imam, Dad, can you write me a letter to the Board of Education of South Brunswick to allow me to go with my scarf, with my turban, to the school? I said, no, Maryam, I'm not going to write you any letter. She said, Dad, you write letter for everybody, Muslim and non-Muslim. I said, no, I'm not going to write you any letter. This is before September 11, a long time ago. She has 5 kids. Give her takbir in Arabic, takbir. I said, Maryam, no, we are Muslim, we are American, we live in South Brunswick. Go to the school, if anybody touch your turban or your scarf and pull it, I will call the chief of the police. But never happened. Maryam, does anyone pull your scarf, put your turban? Muslim brother, this is our problem. Not the problem, the one who hate us. Not the problem of the white or black or Hispanic or no. It's our problem. We don't carry our identity as a Muslim 24 hours. If you are being Muslim 24 hours as Nur Liman school student, teacher, Saturday school, Sunday school, Khadija and Amina in front of you, give them a big hand. The minute you present yourself as you are, regardless who are you as a Muslim, you will be okay.
I just want to say thank you for including me on the panel. It's a privilege to be here. And I don't know the right answer to your question. I'm going to own that. I've been so grateful to be part of the interfaith clergy group here in South Brunswick. And it's been a wonderful experience to bring all of our houses of worship together a couple times a year. And I think that counts to try and start to break things down, stereotypes. But I have to say that as a pastor of a church that's mostly white, that I too am horrified by the things that come out of the White House these days. And as much as I'm not a fan of our president, I think he's emblematic of things that are happening in our country. And so part of the role of the churches and the temples is really to talk to our people about white privilege and about racism and to confront what we're carrying in ourselves. And until we start to tackle that, then I think we're in big trouble, and this will go on. So that's my commitment and my promise to the wider community, to be having those conversations in my house of worship and have my people take that message outside.
Thank you. Okay, the second question is, and I think that Reverend already touched on this a little bit, but what contemporary role does the legal system play in response to white supremacist attacks against any group or any religion? What role should it play? And what's the role that leaders such as yourselves, with platforms as influential as the ones that you have, play to improve the inaction against white terrorists?
You put yourself on the spot.
I guess I did. Well, first off, in New Jersey, if a bias crime is committed as part of another crime, whatever that crime, whatever degree, whatever level that crime is at, whether first, second, third, fourth, if there's bias intent, it's 1 degree higher. So, New Jersey, as I said before, we take bias incidents, bias crimes, bias events very seriously. I mean, we are really trying, working with our partners in law enforcement throughout the state, and working with our partners in the community. We're trying to work together to eradicate bias. I mean, it's a difficult thing. One thing that we're doing that I think would be of interest to you is that we are working with Department of Education to develop an anti-bias training for schools. Because of the fact is, we all know, bias many times and prejudice is learned in the home and brought to school. And kids feed off of each other with it. So there really is a lot of different things going on in New Jersey right now. I mentioned before about the new reporting system that's just about ready to be unveiled. The Attorney General has updated all of the bias incident investigation guidelines for law enforcement throughout New Jersey, and really enhanced it, and rightfully so. So we do a lot of training as well when it comes to white supremacy. To educate law enforcement and the community on that. And as I said, we try to work together. We go out and we do community events on bias. And I offered it in the future, maybe we'll have to do one here, to be able to educate the community about bias, what it's all about, and the things that the community needs to do to be able to eradicate. As I mentioned before, the most important piece is to be able to report it. Because I could think of such minor events that have taken place where clergy did not want to go forward to report because they felt like they'd be wasting police officers' time here in Jersey. And unfortunately, it led to the inaction, led to that person that had negative things to say, a few weeks later, killing 6 people, 6 innocent people. So, we all have to stand together, as I mentioned before. We got to work together, stand against hatred, and do what we can to be able to stand up for one another.
Yeah, of course, there are unfortunately those incidents where there are violent crimes that are committed in the name of bigotry and hatred. And in those cases, of course, first thing you do is call the police. Please call the police, please report it. We are very suspicious that a lot of hate crimes against Muslims in New Jersey and around the country are underreported. And this is reflected in statistics that are kept by a number of agencies at the federal, state, and local level. And these statistics are used to actually allocate funds for programs, and for grants and things like that. So it does have an impact. Not all bias incidents actually come in the form of violent crime. There are bias incidents in the form of discrimination on the job, bullying, denial of service at various places. That's one of the reasons that my organization exists. We have attorneys, we have civil rights attorneys on our staff that are here to help you in those cases. So I'd ask that if you are the victim of some bias incident and you think you need representation, or you'd like to know what the legal implications are, please contact us. It's County, New Jersey. If you don't know how to contact us, the management of this masjid certainly knows how to contact us. I'm sure we have my phone number. It's certainly easy to find us. But please contact us, if for nothing else, so that we can log the incident in our database, because we do keep records, and various the press and agencies do come to us for statistics on these things, and we need to know the scope of the problem before we know how to address it. So,
thank you. And to add to that, there's a great point, about if you experience bias or prejudice in a workplace, in a place of public accommodation, even in school. Within the office of the Attorney General is the Division on Civil Rights. They'll get involved and they'll investigate that. They'll take action to support what my colleague just said. So just keep that in mind too.
Okay, we're gonna open up to anyone here who has a question for our panel. So if anyone has a question.
May I request the brother or the sister to line up next to this area? The microphone will come to you, and please make your question very long and you get short answer, inshallah. Can we request all the brother and sister who like to make the question, please come line up.
Assalamu alaikum. I actually don't have a question. I do have an answer. This answer is to do with the exact topic that is being discussed here. This goes back about 10, 12 years. My son, who is a student of Imam Shibli and a graduate of this school, when he was in the 8th grade, at home we had a dinner party, all Muslims, relatives, and one of the relatives, a senior member of the Islamic community, made a remark while the children were playing here and there. And the remark he made was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very biased. And everybody was shocked. Why would he say something like this? And somebody asked him, why would you say that? And his reply was that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when a Muslim dies and goes to heaven, he would be accompanied by the hurs that would be very white. Now, my son who was listening came over and said to him, Uncle, you are actually misquoting the Quran. In the Quran, Allah says that the hurs, their faces will be shining with nur.
Can you explain what the whole means?
Hur is the, I don't know, you meant that.
Beautiful girl.
Beautiful girl. Yeah, beautiful girl. So the beautiful girl will be white. So my son goes that the actual words are that the beautiful girl's faces will be shining with nur. It is shiny, not white, not black, not brown, nothing. So my point in all of this is that the Muslims themselves, majority of the people sitting here, we are not actually so well versed in the Quran itself, ourselves, let alone other communities, other religions. That's my point. I just wanted to share this with you.
It is not a comment, but a part of the answer he given to us. Like to ask a question?
Sort of.
Yes, please go ahead. Go first.
We've all talked about sharing, about talking to each other in a different way. Law enforcement often says, if you see something, say something. I think all of us here have a duty. If you hear something, say something. If someone says something about a Muslim, I'm Jewish, I'm going to say that's not proper or something else. If someone says something about a Catholic, I will say something. I think all of us need to say, if we're here, from this day forward, we won't be silent.
The reason I stood up just before the sister talk, thank you for what you said about Muslims are not educated very well about the Quran and reading, because the Quran was written in Arabic, translated to English, to Urdu. When we read it, we are not familiar with this. That is the reason our rabbi said, Brother Adam, said we have to study Muslim, Christian, Jews, Hindu, Sikh, name it. All of us has to study with each other. And one more comment is for my friend and my colleague and my guest as Christians and a Jew. When you come to a Muslim, he is well versed about his book. He knows about the Christianity and Judaism, looks like more than what you know. I'm not saying you don't know anything about, no, because the Quran is full with the story of Musa and Jesus. Other religion we have to study to go to India, and my daughter-in-law from India will go to Chennai, to Taj Mahal, to all these things to understand what the Hindu and the Sikh are doing, and we have to know each other. More questions?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Dawood Asad, one of the founding members here. Usually we have a lot of sayings and interfaith and so forth, but really we talk too much. But we need action. I see some actions. Now I would like to see if there is any attack on any church or a synagogue or a temple or anything, I like to see the imams, the rabbi, the Hindus, whatever you call them, come back together, hold each other and condemn that action. This happened in California, which I was very, very watching when an incident happened, I forgot what it is. But I can see over here, and this is only when we do something, we have to do action. Actions, actions. It's enough talks, really, okay? I've been in this country since 1951, as you know, he knows me very well. And I engage in many interfaith. And every time the question comes up, how come the Muslims do not condemn anything happens overseas when a Muslim do a crime? I said, my brothers and sisters, listen, we do condemn it, but you do not read it. And you do not watch the news. Are you watching Fox News number 5? Oh my goodness. Watch something else. So what I'm saying to you, this has actions and just talk. Thank you very much.
May I request the panel please to stand up, hold the hand of each other. Girls, hold my shoulder, hold their hand. Is this what you like to do, Asad? Give us takbir, please. Takbir, takbir, takbir. Have a seat.
Okay, I think we have time for one question.
I just wanted to tie a couple of points together that were made just now. One, I think it's important for us as Muslims, of course, to have knowledge about our own faith tradition, but we also have to learn how to translate our religion for the wider public. Knowing something and being able to articulate something are two different things. And I think that part of our role is to be ambassadors to the wider society. We have to learn and we have to think deeply, and we have to hold conversations and seminars about how to speak about Islam, so that some of the misunderstandings that people have can be washed away, inshallah. And the second point is about action, which is that, believe you me, this is action. It may sound like a lot of words, but when people come together and they talk about not only tolerance but love, and we stand with each other, we hug each other, this is action, and we need more of this in the world that we're living in. So I want to thank everyone for really coming out.
I want to add one other thought. I know tonight earlier we were here for part of a prayer experience. This is not the first time I've been here at the mosque to be part of a prayer experience. And tonight will not be the first time I've offered a prayer in this holy place. I'm going to share with all of you a prayer that I recited in my congregation this past Saturday morning when we gathered for Shabbat. And I spoke about the events of New Zealand from the day before. It's a prayer that comes from our Siddur, from our prayer book. I adapted it a little bit for tonight, but I think you'll understand. I know some people here will recognize this prayer from your own synagogue experience. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world, when nation will not threaten nation, when person will not threaten person, and humanity will not again know war and violence and hatred. For all who live on earth shall realize that God has brought us into this world not to hate or to destroy. We come into being to praise, to labor, and to love. Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations. Bless the members of every religious tradition, every citizen of every country in our world with the power of compassion. Fulfill the promise conveyed in our sacred Torah. I'll bring peace to the land, you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you. I will rid the land of vicious peace, and it shall not again be ravaged by war. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the earth as waters fill the sea. To this we all say amen. It's prayers like this, it's times like this that we can all come together to learn from one another, to console one another, to support one another, to do more than tolerate, but really to listen and to love. And I think that's the steps we need to take.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to address to my ISCJ-Society of Central Jersey administration. We have to, inshallah, make it into a formal structure of how can we organize such events to invite other faiths, members of our community, and throughout the year. So no answers right now, but inshallah we can have a plan in place and work on that. That will be very good to come out of our silos and reach out. Thank you.
We are talking only to Muslims, sorry. No discrimination, but only to Muslims. Because he pointed his finger to somebody else, which means include me. If you like to have that, listen to me carefully. In April 14 we have election. If you like to vote, vote those two girls, don't vote for inactivity. Those are the two girls behind this group, behind this event. Muslim and brother and sister, we pray, we read Surah Fatiha, because we are going to pray at 9 o'clock. Let us recite Surah Fatiha, the first chapter in the Quran Kareem, 7 verses. We recite it in synagogue, in mosque, in churches, everywhere. We recite in Arabic to conclude our meeting, our gathering, on behalf of the brothers who die as martyrs in North New Zealand, and God bless all their souls. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صدق الله العظيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Okay, before we start Ishta, I just wanted to recognize a member of Homeland Security, and if you would like to come up and say state your name.
Thank you. Imam, thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to thank everyone personally, and I'll explain why in one moment. So, my job at Homeland Security is to prevent mass casualty attacks. I don't look at armed robberies, I don't look at rapes, I just prevent attacks, which is really hard to do because I have to tell the future. So that's why we're always looking to the community to see something, say something. So that being said, I rarely sleep at night. You can say I'm only 22 years old. So, but I keep a notebook right here in my pocket, and I keep one by my nightstand because we have to think about our adversaries. They're very creative when they conduct attacks, so I try to think like them and think one step ahead of them. So I often speak at houses of worship, and when I do open my lectures, I tell the group that I am not politically correct. And of course everyone looks at me, wow, he's not politically correct. But it's not because I'm callous, it's actually out of love. Because I don't see Muslim, I don't see Jew, I don't see fat, skinny, lesbian, I don't see it. At our core, we're all just human beings with beating hearts. And that's what I see every single day. So just to have that diversity of the different religions and cultures is just gravy on top. So after the attacks in New Zealand, Al-Qaeda and ISIS put out a communication that all Muslims should avenge those attacks. Then the right-wing groups celebrated the attacks. But the fact that we're all here today doing what we're doing makes me feel really good, because this is how you respond. today, so at least one night, tonight, I will sleep. Thank you so much.
Inshallah ta'ala, we need one Muslim to come to the podium to make the adhan, then we'll do the salat. And thank you everybody came, include our panel, priest, minister, South Brunswick Radio Station, government, official, board of trustees of ISCJ, and everybody. Thank you, God bless all of you.